Ladies and gentlemen, repetition reshapes the subconscious mind. This is a truth we often overlook when we begin the journey of transformation. We set goals, we visualize our new life, speak powerful affirmations, but we forget that none of it truly lands unless it reaches the subconscious. The subconscious mind is where our paradigms lie. It is the operating system running silently in the background, dictating how we think, feel, and act, often without us even realizing it. This is why surface-level inspiration doesn't last. A single motivational video, a one-time affirmation, a burst of clarity, it might feel powerful in the moment, but unless it's repeated, it fades. The mind returns to what it knows. It slips back into the old patterns, the old fears, the old stories that were planted long ago, usually not by us, but by others. Parents, society, media, early experiences, these all shaped our core beliefs through repeated exposure. We didn't choose them consciously, but they became our truth. That is the power of repetition. It programs, it conditions. It writes the script of our inner world. So if we want to change that script, if we want to install a new paradigm, we have to use the same process. We must become intentional with what we repeat. Not just once, not for a week, but again and again until the new belief becomes more familiar than the old one, until the new thought feels natural and the old one starts to feel foreign. That's when you know the subconscious is shifting. In the beginning, repetition can feel awkward. You might not believe the words you're saying. I am worthy. I am confident. I am abundant. Your conscious mind might resist. It might argue. That's okay. It's expected. Remember, your current paradigm has been reinforced thousands of times. It won't be overwritten in a day. But the moment you repeat a new thought, even if you don't fully believe it, something begins to change. A new connection is sparked in the brain. A new possibility opens up in your reality. Each repetition is like a drop of water on stone. Alone, it's small, insignificant. But with time, the drops form a groove. That groove becomes deeper. Eventually, it carves a path. Your mind works the same way. The more often a new idea is introduced, especially when paired with emotion and intention, the more it becomes etched into your subconscious. This is how transformation happens, not through a dramatic breakthrough, but through gentle persistence. Think of how we learn a language or a new skill. We don't master it the first time. We go over it again and again until it becomes second nature. Paradigm shifting is no different. You are learning a new language of self-worth, of abundance, of inner peace. You are practicing new thoughts that serve your future, not your past. And every time you repeat these thoughts, whether in your mind out loud or in writing, you are telling your subconscious, this is who I am now, this is my truth. There's a quiet power in that, a kind of inner discipline that grows stronger with each repetition. It doesn't demand perfection. It asks for presence. It asks for commitment. It asks that you trust the process even when results aren't immediate, because the truth is your subconscious doesn't change instantly, but it does change. And when it does, everything else in your life follows. That's when you begin to notice shifts in your behavior. You start speaking up more. You walk differently. You say yes to new opportunities, no to what no longer serves you. These aren't random changes. They're reflections of a new paradigm settling in. And the foundation of that shift, repetition. So if you're on this path of transformation, if you're doing the work to change your life from the inside out, know this repetition is not just helpful, it's necessary. Keep showing up. Keep repeating the new story, even when it feels slow, even when the old thoughts try to return. This is how you rewire your mind. This is how you take back your power. Because with each repetition, you're not just changing a thought, you're changing the entire foundation of who you believe yourself to be. The old paradigms we carry were not built in a day. They weren't the result of one experience or one belief. They were formed through years, sometimes decades, of repeated thoughts, repeated messages, and repeated emotional experiences. Didn't consciously choose many of these beliefs. They were absorbed, they were inherited, and they became part of the lens through which we see the world and ourselves. That lens is what we call a paradigm, a deeply rooted set of beliefs that runs our life automatically. Think about the beliefs you carry today that feel like facts. Maybe you believe that success is hard, that love is scarce, that money doesn't come easily, or that you're not good enough. These are not truths, they're patterns. They were likely picked up when you were young, when your mind was wide open and absorbing everything around you. You saw your parents struggling financially, and the message repeated itself in your environment. There's never enough. You were criticized often, and the repetition of those moments led to the internal story, I'm not worthy. Over time, these repeated impressions formed your inner programming, not through logic, but through exposure, through frequency. This is why repetition is the only tool powerful enough to change a paradigm, because repetition is what built it in the first place. You can't undo years of mental conditioning with a single decision. Can't shift a belief that has been cemented through years of emotional reinforcement just by wishing it away. You have to meet it with equal force. And that force is consistent, intentional repetition of the new belief you want to install. The old paradigm is like a well-worn path in the mind. It's familiar, it's easy to follow because it's been walked on so many times. The moment you try to step off that path, your mind resists. It tries to pull you back. That's not failure, it's the natural result of deep conditioning. But each time you repeat a new belief, each time you affirm a new truth, you're slowly clearing a new path. At first, it feels difficult. Your thoughts may not want to follow it, but over time, with enough repetition, that new path becomes more defined. Eventually, it becomes the new automatic route. This is why changing your paradigm requires patience. You're not just learning something new, you're unlearning something old. You're replacing the familiar with the unfamiliar, the programmed with the intentional. And the only way to make the unfamiliar feel safe and natural is to repeat it again and again until it settles deep into your subconscious. Affirmations are a powerful part of this process, not because they're magical, but because they use repetition with purpose. When you say, "I am enough," every single day, even when you don't fully believe it, you're planting a seed. The old paradigm says you're not worthy, but the new voice, the one you choose to repeat, says otherwise. And over time, if you keep showing up for that voice, it grows louder, it gains momentum, and the old voice begins to fade. The same is true for every area of your life. If you want to shift from lack to abundance, you must repeat thoughts of abundance. If you want to shift from fear to confidence, you must practice thoughts of courage, and not just once, not just when it's convenient, but daily, consistently, with feeling. You must outnumber the old thoughts. You must flood your mind with a new story until it becomes your dominant vibration. This isn't about pretending. It's about choosing. It's about deciding that you are no longer available for the old programming that was handed to you without your consent. It's about reclaiming your mind by flooding it with new instructions, just like a computer being reprogrammed. You are not broken. You are not stuck. You are simply running an outdated paradigm. And the great news is, with enough repetition, you can update it, you can rebuild your mental blueprint, you can install a new operating system, one that reflects your true potential rather than your old limitations. So don't be discouraged by the slowness of the process. Don't give up just because the old thoughts try to return. They're just echoes of the past. What matters is what you choose to repeat now, because repetition is how the old was built, and repetition is how the new will rise. The mind learns through consistency. It's not the intensity of a single moment that changes us, it's the quiet, repeated effort over time. Just like the body builds strength through repeated movement, the mind builds new beliefs through repeated thoughts. And this is why consistency through repetition becomes a powerful agent of change when we're shifting our inner paradigm. At first, it may feel like nothing is happening. You say the affirmations, you visualize the life you want. You try to think differently, act differently, speak differently. But the old habits, the old beliefs, still feel stronger. This is completely normal. The brain is designed to favor what is familiar, what it has rehearsed the most. Your current paradigm has been rehearsed for years. It's become automatic. Shows up in your thoughts without permission, in your decisions without hesitation. So when you try to install something new, the brain naturally resists. Not because change is impossible, but because change is unfamiliar. This is where consistency becomes your most important tool. The mind doesn't learn through a single exposure, it learns through frequency. When something is repeated enough times, the brain begins to accept it as real. And once it feels real, it becomes the new default. That's the magic of repetition. It moves new beliefs from the conscious to the subconscious, where real transformation takes place. Think about how you've learned anything meaningful in your life. You didn't learn to write your name by doing it once. You didn't learn to ride a bike, speak your language, or even walk through a single experience. You practiced, you failed, you repeated, and over time became natural. That same principle applies to changing your mindset. You are learning a new way of thinking, a new way of speaking to yourself, a new way of seeing the world. And that can only happen through consistent repetition. At first, these new thoughts might feel foreign. You might say, "I am confident," but deep down, you feel insecure. You might affirm, "Abundance flows to me," but your bank account tells a different story. Still, you show up. Still, you repeat. Because every time you do, you are reinforcing a new pattern in your brain. You're training your mind to expect something different. You're planting new seeds, even if you can't see the sprouts yet. Consistency doesn't always feel exciting. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. Powerful. It's what separates those who change from those who stay stuck. It's the quiet discipline of showing up for your future self, even when your current reality hasn't caught up yet. And the more consistent you are, the more natural the new paradigm becomes. Eventually, you won't have to force the thought. You won't have to remind yourself constantly. It will feel automatic because it will be. This is when the shift becomes visible in your life. You'll start responding differently in situations that used to trigger you. Catch yourself thinking in more empowering ways without even trying. You'll notice your actions aligning with your higher self more often. And all of that comes back to the same root repetition, done consistently. Even science supports this. Neuroscience tells us that the brain builds stronger connections between neurons that fire together frequently. It's called neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire itself. But this rewiring doesn't happen overnight. It requires that the new thoughts be repeated often enough to become dominant. That's the real reason why daily affirmations, daily visualization, and daily mindset work are so powerful. They train your brain not just to think differently, but to become different. So when you feel like giving up, when you feel like it's not working, remember that the real work is happening beneath the surface. You are rewiring your mind one repetition at a time. You may not see it instantly, but trust that each consistent thought, each intentional repetition is building the foundation for a completely new way of being. Keep repeating. Keep showing up, because consistency is not just a habit. It is the very mechanism through which the mind learns, evolves, and transforms. Repetition creates emotional connection, and that emotional connection is what turns a thought into a belief. It's not just the words we say that matter. It's the energy we bring to them. When we repeat something with emotion, we give it life, give it weight. We allow it to move deeper, past the surface level of logic, into the subconscious, where it can begin to take root and transform us from within. The subconscious doesn't respond to empty words, it responds to feelings. And that's why repetition alone without emotional engagement often feels hollow. You can repeat affirmations all day long. If you're disconnected while saying them, if you're just reciting them like a list, they won't have the same impact. But the moment you say those same words with emotion, when your voice carries conviction, when your heart feels aligned, something shifts. The affirmation becomes a declaration. It becomes a message to your subconscious that this new belief matters. Emotion is the language of the subconscious. It's how we imprint experiences deeply into memory. Think about the most powerful memories in your life. Chances are they were not just significant because of what happened. They were charged with emotion. Whether it was joy, fear, sadness, excitement, or love, emotion attached to the moment made it unforgettable. That same principle applies when you're reprogramming your paradigm. When you add emotion to your repetition, you're creating memorable impressions in the mind. You're making the new belief feel real. That's the goal, to make the new thought feel real. Not someday, but now. You want to feel abundance now. You want to feel worthy now. You want to feel confident now. Because the subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's vividly imagined and what's real. It only responds to the emotion behind the thought. So if you can repeat, "I am abundant," while truly allowing yourself to feel that abundance in your body, even if it's just for a moment, you've just given your subconscious a new signal to follow. And if you keep doing that again and again, that feeling begins to become familiar. That familiarity becomes your new emotional baseline, and that baseline becomes your new paradigm. There's a difference between knowing something intellectually and embodying it emotionally. Most of us know on a mental level that we're capable, that we're worthy, that we're enough. But if we don't feel it, if that truth hasn't reached our emotional body, it doesn't change our behavior. We still shrink. We still doubt. We still hold ourselves back. So repetition must go beyond words. It must be felt. It must be lived. This is why daily practices like visualization, affirmations, and journaling are so effective, not because they're trendy, but because they're repeated acts of emotional rehearsal. They allow you to immerse yourself in the new belief, not just think about it. They train you to feel as if the new paradigm is already yours. And when you do that enough times, it begins to shift your self-image. You begin to see yourself differently. You begin to expect more. You begin to act from a place of worth instead of lack. There's something powerful about imagining a better version of yourself and repeating the feelings associated with that version. You're no longer just reaching for a goal, you're stepping into an identity. And that's how real change happens, not by forcing it, but by feeling your way into it, by using repetition, not just as a mental exercise, but as an emotional practice. So the next time you speak an affirmation, pause, let the words sink in, say them slowly, say them like you mean them. Let your heart catch up with your mouth. Don't just say, I am loved. Feel what it would be like to be loved deeply. Let that feeling wash over you. That's the moment the subconscious starts listening. That's when the belief starts to take root. That's when the paradigm begins to shift. Repetition opens the door, but emotion walks the message in. And when the message is repeated with enough feeling, over time it becomes your truth. Change takes time and reinforcement. That's something many of us forget when we set out to shift our mindset or transform our lives. We want the change to be instant, crave immediate results, instant breakthroughs, overnight growth. But real change, deep internal lasting change, doesn't happen like that. It doesn't come from a single decision or moment of motivation. It's built over time through consistent reinforcement. Just like water shapes stone with steady drops over time, repetition becomes the steady force that molds a new paradigm into place. When you begin to change your paradigm, you're essentially attempting to rewire years of automatic thinking. You're challenging patterns that have been repeated so often they feel like facts. These patterns have emotional backing, sensory memory, and repetition on their side. So to override them, you need something stronger. You need persistence. You need patience. And you need the willingness to keep reinforcing the new belief, even when you don't see immediate evidence of it in your outer world. This is where most people get discouraged. They start the process with enthusiasm. They say their affirmations, do the journaling, visualize their new life. And when nothing changes right away, they assume it's not working. But the truth is it is working, just not on the surface yet. The subconscious mind moves slowly. It resists sudden changes because its job is to keep you safe and consistent with who you've been. And who you've been is based on what's been repeated most. That's why reinforcement is crucial. Think of paradigm shifting as planting a seed. When you plant it, you don't see the tree the next day. You water it, nourish it, trust the process, and eventually it begins to grow. The repetition is the watering. The belief is the seed. And your consistent action is the sunlight. Without one of those elements, the transformation can't take root. When you keep showing up, especially on the days when it feels pointless, you're proving to your subconscious that this new way of thinking matters, that it's safe, that it's here to stay. Sometimes reinforcement isn't just about repeating the affirmation or the vision. It's about choosing the new belief in your daily choices. It's about walking away from the familiar thought and choosing the one that feels more aligned, even if it's uncomfortable. It's about staying in the vibration of your future self a little longer each day. That's what real reinforcement looks like. It's not just about what you say, it's about what you do, how you respond, and how you carry yourself while you wait for the internal shift to reflect in the external world. There will be days when the old paradigm feels stronger, days when fear, doubt, or old beliefs creep back in. That's normal. The key is not to panic. The key is not to interpret it as failure. It's just your mind remembering an old habit. And just like breaking any habit, it takes time. The more you return to your new truth, the more you affirm it, feel it, live it, the more your subconscious begins to believe it. And once the subconscious believes it, everything changes. You'll start to see the shift in subtle ways first. You'll notice new ideas showing up in your mind. You'll catch yourself responding differently in situations that used to trigger you. Feel more grounded, more self-assured, more connected to a deeper truth. That's the evidence of reinforcement working. That's the sign that the new paradigm is beginning to take hold. And it's important to celebrate those small signs. Every little shift is proof that your repetition is creating real change. Don't wait for the big moment to validate your effort. Reinforce the process by recognizing the progress, however small it may seem. This builds momentum, it builds trust, and it reminds your subconscious that change is safe, steady, and happening now. So if you're on this journey, if you're doing the work, repeating the new thoughts, choosing the new path, keep going. The reinforcement you give yourself today will become the strength you live from tomorrow. Without repetition, the old paradigm wins. It's that simple and that powerful. No matter how inspired we feel in a moment, no matter how clearly we visualize our ideal life, if we don't continue to reinforce the new beliefs we're trying to build, our mind will default to what it already knows. That default mode is the old paradigm, the collection of thoughts, habits, and feelings we've repeated for years, sometimes without even realizing it. The mind always chooses familiarity over transformation unless we give it a reason to do otherwise. And that reason is repetition, because no matter how strong your intentions are, your subconscious doesn't change from a one-time insight. It changes through persistent, deliberate reinforcement. And the old paradigm, it doesn't just leave on its own. It waits. It lingers. It hides behind doubt, fear, and hesitation, ready to pull you back into the version of you that you're trying to grow out of. That's why if we pause our repetition, if we stop feeding the new paradigm, it's so easy to slip back into our old ways of thinking, reacting, and living. The old story feels comfortable because it's been practiced so many times. It has momentum. It feels like truth. That's the tricky part. It's not actually true. It's just familiar. And the only way to break that familiarity is to create a new one. A new thought repeated often enough becomes just as natural as the one it's meant to replace. But you have to keep feeding it. You have to keep choosing it. Repetition is what keeps the new paradigm alive and growing. This is where discipline meets transformation. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about reminding yourself of your new truth over and over again, even when the old one tries to make a comeback. It's in those moments of doubt, when the old voice whispers, "See, nothing's changed," that you must double down on your repetition, not out of fear, but out of deep inner commitment. You are choosing your future self. You are choosing to be the creator of your life rather than the product of your past. When you stop repeating the new belief, the old one doesn't disappear. It simply waits for an opening. The mind is always listening, and if we're not directing it with clarity and repetition, it will fall back into default. It will reach for the thought that's been said the most, felt the most, believed the most. That's why we must be intentional with the messages we give ourselves, because every repetition strengthens a neural pathway. It's either reinforcing the old story or building the new one. Even the smallest moments of repetition count. Saying your affirmation once a day, visualizing your future for 5 minutes, writing down what you want as if it's already true. These moments matter more than we realize because they signal to the subconscious. This is what we're doing now. And when done daily, they begin to tip the scales in your favor. The old paradigm loses strength. The new one begins to anchor in. But this requires trust in the process. It means you keep repeating the new belief even when nothing looks different yet, even when your circumstances haven't caught up. Because if you stop reinforcing your vision too early, you rob yourself of the very thing that would have created the change. You cut off the momentum. You let the old paradigm step back in, not because it's stronger, but because it's been repeated more. So repetition becomes your lifeline, your anchor, your reminder that you are not your past. You are what you choose to focus on today. And when you return to the same empowering thoughts every day, train your mind to accept them as real. Over time, they stop feeling like affirmations and start feeling like facts. And when that shift happens, when the new paradigm becomes the one your subconscious believes in, that's when transformation takes root not as a moment, but as a new way of being. So don't underestimate the power of repetition. Without it, the old paradigm wins. With it, you win. Every time, change begins with intention, but it's solidified through repetition. Shifting your paradigm isn't about one powerful moment. It's about showing up for yourself day after day, thought after thought, even when it feels slow, even when the old patterns try to pull you back. Each repetition is a quiet act of rebellion against the past and a firm declaration of who you're becoming. Through repetition, you rewire your subconscious, redefine your identity, and reclaim your power. So keep repeating, keep choosing the new story, because in the end, repetition doesn't just change your thoughts, it changes your life.